Hello, friends of Goldmine Consultants. Good evening. I am so excited about having this opportunity to meet with you today. My name is Stacy, president and founder of Goldmine Consultants. And tonight I just want to have a random conversation. Hopefully I can keep you long enough to draw your attention to what it is that I have to say. And this information right here will encourage you to let you know that no matter what you see before you, it is just a training tool to get you where you need to be. So just so you can learn a little bit about me and how I got where I am today regarding wanting to establish a company called Goldmine Consultants. It had a lot to do with my experiences. It had a lot to do with my purpose and then tapping into my purpose. So, oh my goodness, as a child, I lived in about maybe 35 different houses and apartments. I didn't realize it until I actually had to write down every place that I lived for a background investigation. And I'm writing it down and I'm asking my mother about it and some of the places that I lived in the past when I lived with people. I asked them for the addresses and then some of the apartments that I had acquired on my own up until my current residence. So I wrote them all down for the place and I'm like, wow. And then I had to write down all of my jobs that I had. And wow, I had about 15 jobs ranging from, working at McDonald's until being in law enforcement. And oh my goodness, schools. I had attended schools in Southern Jersey, Detroit, Michigan, in New Jersey itself, in Northern Jersey. So I transitioned from this school, so I met a lot of people along the way, a lot of hardship, a lot of hard times, but that all helped me develop who I am today. I lived in some of it's hard for me to say the worst neighborhoods, but depending on who I speak with, and as I get older and I think about some of those experiences, it wasn't a good place to be. But guess what? In some parts, it was a phenomenal place to be. I met some of the greatest people, some of my greatest friends today, from living on Martin Luther King Boulevard, living on Prince Street, in Newark, living on Astor Street. I met some of the greatest people. And although people don't think that in the inner city you don't have a sense of community, to me, we had the greatest sense of community. I'm talking about block parties. We would play games together as kids, red light, green light. We'll come out. There was always something to do in the inner city. So I obtained a lot of my value and my sense of community regarding wanting to give back from living in a community and just being around people who were just absolutely phenomenal. So going from resident to resident as a kid, it could have been anything ranging from my mother just wanting to find a better place. It could have been leaks in the ceilings, some of the rodents that were that came with the apartment building. So we would move because of that. Maybe it was a shortage of funding, so we were forced to leave. So I had transitioned, just moving from block to block in Newark. And then when I became an adult and I started getting my own place, I found myself doing the same thing when I had children. I decided to move from place to place, just trying to find a place that was a little bit better than the last. I didn't know how to dream big. I didn't know how to really get my mind centered around, guess what, you can buy a house. I always thought that it was impossible. It would cost too much money. So just having a better apartment was enough for me. And I also had a lot of jobs. I worked at McDonald's on Frelinghuysen Avenue. No, it was actually McCarter Highway. I worked at the McDonald's on Broad Street. I worked at ShopRite on Route 22 in Newark. I worked at Burger King. I worked at A&P. I had so many jobs. I was in the military. I worked at White Castle. But along the way, although I went from job to job, every time I applied for another job, I always wanted something. I wanted to be somewhere where they offered better benefits or at least $1 more. So I started off making $3.35 an hour while working at McDonald's. And I just want to tell you a little bit about that. When I worked at McDonald's on Broad Street, I met some of the most phenomenal people today who are doing phenomenal things. I met Sheila Hargrove, Fatima Turner. I met Danita. I met Florence. I met there was one other lady, and forgive me if I forgot your name, but they're into nursing programs. They're mathematicians. And one of them is studying and teaching overseas. So they're doing phenomenal things, and we all came from the same inner city. It was either East Orange or Newark. And I just learned so much along the way. I like to tell a little story about my friend Sheila. DeSheila, she was very good with money back then, and we probably were making about $90 a week during that time. And I always had to get my hair done or put a piece of jewelry on layaway. And she had a bank account. She was the first person I knew at age 16 that had a bank account. And I know she told me that she learned a lot from her grandparents. But when she started talking about a bank account, I was like, wow, I want to get one of those. No fault of my mother that she didn't teach me. It was just that we were living in a situation that it wasn't conducive to her at that time to teach us that type of stuff, because she was trying to teach us survival. And but Sheila, she introduced me to the whole bank account thing, and I try to tell her about it every now and again. So I remember at one point she talked about going to the bank and putting money in, and I said, guess what, I'm going to start in a bank account. So I started my first bank account at age 17, and I started watching the money accumulate, because I would put in $10, $15, $20, whatever it was, and I watched it accumulate, and I was like proud of that. I was like, wow, this is pretty good. And I remember another young lady I talked to, Tanya Brinson, who's also a good friend of mine, doing a phenomenal thing, working in the healthcare field. She was talking about income taxes. So she came to school one day. We were in high school attending Irvington Tech, and I remember her talking about her parents had received their income tax, and that they gave her and her brother some money. So I'm like, income tax, what is that? Never heard of income tax before, an income tax return. So that was an introduction to words that I had never heard. It was in the 9th grade that I learned about the bank account, and it was in the 10th grade that I had learned about income tax. So I thought those two things, as you can see, they still stuck in my mind, and I'm 43 years old. Those two things were phenomenal. And I also met another friend who has since passed away. His name was James Wicker. And James said to me, I said, you know what, James? So one day I want to work a job, 2 jobs, where I can make $100,000 a year. And he said to me, how about you work 1 job making $100,000 a year? And I said, who's working a job making $100,000 a year? And he said, I know plenty of women working 1 job making $100,000. And he planted that seed, and from then I was like, wow, I'm gonna get me a job making $100,000 a year. So it was just those seeds that were planted that I never forgot from those particular individuals. So and as time went on, I ended up joining the military. Now while in the military, I was working at White Castle. I walked in White Castle. They offered me $5 an hour. 5 years later, I didn't realize it until I started working for the airport, CA1 Services, that I had went from $5 an hour to $5.50 an hour. And I didn't realize I was so comfortable. Being in that environment, I felt like I had a family, a new family, because we were so close there. My friend Teresa Majette, she's more than a friend, she's my sister. We're so close today, but I had gained a lot of good relationships there, and I got comfortable. But after a while, some of the treatment, I was like, you know what, I don't think I like being treated like this. And then I had my first son. So I said, there's no way that I'm going to have a kid where I can't afford to give him what he wants. I want my child to live in a house. I want my child to go to college. I want them to have a backyard where they can play. And from that point on, as I begin to speak those things into existence, I believe I began to move forward in that thing. So I got a job at Continental Airlines, where I had met some phenomenal people. I had the opportunity to travel. And although I didn't have a lot of money when I traveled, I had the opportunity to do it, and got exposed to the world, and got exposed to other things and different people. And it was just a phenomenal experience. So those were the building blocks. So as I went from McDonald's at $3.35, White Castle and ShopRite, $5 an hour, started working for CA1 Services, $8 an hour, until I got to about $14 an hour. Then I got a job at Continental. At that time, they were hiring at $8. But then I did the math. I knew that in a short period of time, I could make more money than I was making in my current situation. So I started working at Continental.